All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for jumping into today's Getting Started webinar for Site App Pro. So you most likely would have jumped into this webinar because you're brand new to Site App Pro. Maybe your customer success manager advised you to jump in here before having some of the meetings with them so you could learn the initial tips and really understand what's going to happen on your journey with us. Or maybe you're just started in your business and they've been using Site App Pro for a while, and so you want to learn everything you need to know about our system. Awesome. If you're a regular to these sessions, as you know, you can sign up to them as many times as you'd like to. So maybe today you just learn one thing from the session and you want to come back another time to then deep dive in other areas. So come along as many times as you'd like to, invite your team, or send the recording from our Video Education Center out to your team so that we can help teach everyone and make sure everyone is getting the most out of Site App Pro. All right, so really quickly, jumping into the system, what we will be doing today, I guess, as a part of our agenda is obviously we just had a bit of an introduction. I'll also give you a slight background on what it is we do. I'll then go on just a live demo. So the goal of today is to try and teach you enough for you to get started and to really learn how to use Site App Pro on your own. And then if you are in a subscription pack that you have a customer success manager, you can then come to them with your questions ready to go and areas that you want to focus on with them. If you don't have a customer success manager in your package, then you can always reach out to our support team as well with any questions, and this session will hopefully prompt those questions for you as well. At the end of these sessions, we always have a live Q&A. So even if you have come to these sessions before, but you just want to jump on to the session so you can join that Q&A, please feel free to do that, as we're more than happy to help. We want you to know everything you need to know about Site App Pro so you can get the most out of it. So please don't be shy to ask us those questions that are really burning through your mind. And then, of course, we've got so many resources that you can access, additional webinars, knowledge bases, and our Video Education Center, which is a hub of knowledge for you to really engage with your account and learn how to customize it for your business. Awesome. So in regards to Site App Pro, I am going to be sharing my screen today and walking you through. Cool. So Site App Pro, for those of you who may have just been thrown into this journey, you might not have been taken on through the buying process of the system, a little bit of background for you initially. So Site App Pro is going to be your digital health and safety tool. It's what your team on site will use to engage with the health and safety on app. They'll also be able to monitor their hazards, log incidents, complete their daily checklists, manage and maintain their equipment, but also engage with your contractors and suppliers as well. From a computer side, it's then a centralized system for you to really engage with your reporting of your health and safety, set up workflows and automations to make it easier, assign and monitor corrective actions on your team to make sure that people are being safe on site at all times and doing the jobs that they're required to do. So Site App Pro is hopefully going to add a lot of benefits to your business. And again, there's some areas of the system that you'll find are super perfect for you, and some areas you might not need to set up straight away. So the goal of this session is to find what you want to focus on now, and then you can work out what you want to focus on a bit further down the track, and we can take it one step at a time. Awesome. So what you're looking at here is actually two screens that I'm sharing at the same time. So I don't want to confuse you at all. But on the left here, we've got our admin console. So you can log into our admin console through our website. And so that's siteappro.com. There will be a sign-in button there. But you can also see you can access it through my.siteappro.com. So if you're going to be using this admin console regularly, I recommend bookmarking this page so that you can access it just with a quick click. On the right-hand side here is our mobile app. So this is where your team on site are going to be completing their health and safety forms. So they'll access this through their mobile phones on site. Some companies use a tablet, but we do recommend a mobile phone so that each user is responsible for their health and safety. That's where they'll be able to choose the site they're working on, check in and out, complete the forms that they need to complete, and then they'll be sent straight back here to the admin console for you and your team to then review, report on, and share wider with the people who need to know. The admin console is where we'll be starting a lot of today's session, as that's where a lot of your setup and customization happens as well. So let's get straight into it. What I can see here is I'm currently live on our dashboard. Now, if you're looking at your dashboard and it looks a bit different, the main thing to know for today's session is that we have different subscription packs and licenses that you can sign up to. So some features are available in some packs, however, some of them aren't. So if some things look slightly different, it might be because those features aren't available in the pack that you're in today. If you did want to look at introducing some of the features that I do show you, please don't hesitate to reach out to either your customer success manager or our support team. But regardless, let's dive into it and see what you need to engage with from here. Awesome. So looking at the dashboard, there's a few key things that we want to look at first. This is your bird's eye view on what's happening across all of your sites in your business. So the key areas I want to look at is I can see a user engagement summary. And I can drill in here to see all of my team once I've added them and how well they're engaging on site and how well they're trending compared to their last time they were engaging as well. So are they doing better than last month or are they doing worse? This is a preset score that you can use to monitor your staff and ensure they're all engaging really well with health and safety, and even start to excite them, create competitions to make sure that they are engaging and excited and really focused on keeping them and their team safe on site. From there, I have my corrective action summary, which we'll get into a little bit later. What we can also see is a few dashboards and graphs that you can start to monitor as your team starts to fill in forms. So all of your locations are down on the left here. And as people complete forms, I can see 2 risk assessments were done on our bungalow renovation and 2 incidents were logged there as well. You can also monitor any upcoming certificates due for renewal, whether that's training certificates or specific services related to equipment, as well as any specific equipment information showing down below too. And then finally at the bottom, you can have a few extra graphs that'll show who in your team is the most engaged across all of your users and what forms you're completing the most. At the top here, you'll see it in this page, as well as your reports, we have a date range. And so that's really important. If you find that you just want to look at what's happened today, you can choose today's view. But I could also do a custom view if I want to look at a wider time period. So maybe the last 30 days, or I might even want to go back and look since the start of April at what's been going on my site. Awesome. And last but not least is the activity stream. This is a live feed of what's going on your site. So as your team engages on the site and they start to complete forms, check in and check out, you'll see a live feed of those activities coming through onto that activity stream. I can see that they initially started this form as there's a pause icon at 9:10. And then they also finished that form at 9:10. You can see the site they logged that in on and what user actually completed that as well. And you can click into it at any time to learn more about what they completed. So this is going to give you a really quick snapshot. So if you see something you want to look at, for example, I can see an incident has appeared down here. I can click on it straight away and have a look at that information I need to report on or be aware of. Across all of our reports in Site App Pro, you can always print it if you need to by clicking the print icon, or you can email it to someone who needs to know straight away. Our admin users can also delete forms if it is a mistake, which can be useful when you're first setting up your account. You just want to mess around a bit, try a few forms, but you want to keep your data nice and clean. You can delete some of these completed forms. Just be wary, once you delete it, we can't get it back. So that is a final deletion. Great, so that is your dashboard. For those of you in the larger packs, you will also find the ability to rearrange your dashboard or even hide areas. So if you find some areas are more important to you than others, you can customize the view of your dashboard to suit what's important to your user. And each user in the business can have a different view than what you've set. All right. Moving straight on. So that is your dashboard as a whole. From here, I'm just going to jump straight down to forms, as this is like the crux of the system. It's the most important part of Site App Pro. So depending on the pack you're in, your customer success manager might be assisting you with building your forms into your account. So they may have sent you an implementation workbook, and you may have sent them copies of your existing forms for us to put in your account and customize. We do, however, have a form builder that you can engage with at any time that is really easy to set up and customize on your own. So down the track, you can create your own forms. You can edit the templates we've built for you without waiting for us to have to do it for you and you waiting in line. The key thing to know about forms is, firstly, you may have a form library that's just appeared in your account. You'll see those by those little, orange SAP icons next to the form. And so what that means is it's one of our default forms that we've given to you that you can customize, you can remove, or you can use them if you're happy with how that template looks. Any forms that don't have an icon next to them, that means that they are either being customized from you or built from scratch. And then if you are in a group, so you're a part of a wider business that is using Site App Pro, you might find there are some of forms with these little group icons, and that means they're shared across your wider group. Awesome. When it comes to the forms, the main thing to know is the scheduling. So when I'm a user, I will navigate to my to-do list to complete forms. And so that is how I know what is required for me to complete that day, or this week, or this month. And so we want to set that up in our form builder to make sure our team's getting the right forms when they need them. So if I just click scheduled up here, we can see there's a couple of different ways of scheduling these forms. So when I schedule these forms, they're going to schedule it for my whole business, not per site. So I know that for my pre-start, I currently want it to be daily. To edit the schedule, you can click the pencil button and come here into form settings. There's a couple of areas that you want to focus on here. First thing is I want to scroll down to form completion. If you decide your pre-start is actually going to be a weekly form, you can change that here. And that means on the mobile app, it's going to show up in there this week's tasks, where each user will get one of these forms per week. If you find it's a monthly form, so maybe it's a monthly vehicle checklist, for example, you can choose to have that on a monthly schedule, or even maybe it's quarterly. And so you choose what months is going to appear in this month's tasks, where they'll get one form per month per user for that specific schedule. For a pre-start though, I would like my team to complete it each day. But I actually only work Monday to Friday because I'm quite lucky. And so that is how I would set that up. So I would untick the weekends, and then I can also choose the time of day I want it to appear. So your form will be existing on the mobile app for the whole day. And this time is just a guide, so they know when they roughly should be completing it. So I've set 7 a.m., but I might say they actually, by the time they catch up for this pre-start, it might more be 9 a.m. And so I can remove the 7 a.m. time there. So that is setting up your schedule. Now, if you find it's actually a form that doesn't run on a specific schedule at all, so maybe it's something like a training register or a incident form or a specific checklist that just happens as and when, you can use a different schedule for this. So you would change the form schedule to none. But then what I would do is come up here and I would make it accessible from our form library. So I would click the toggle here so that it might not show up on their to-do list, but they can access it from their ad hoc forms at any time when they need to. So you can see here I have a list of all of the forms that I can access as and when. And each user can go through and favorite the forms that they find they might use more often than not, so they don't have to scroll through that list every single time. Your ad hoc forms can be completed as many times throughout the day as they need to. And obviously at whatever time or day throughout the week, as it's just a library that they access those forms from. So forms commonly found here could be incident related, as you don't know when that could happen, training related, for example, or there could be additional forms that are more specific to your business. Great. So to recap, to find the schedule, we go into our form settings. We go down to either our form completion schedule to choose our daily, weekly, or monthly. Or up the top here, we can do make it accessible in the form library. Awesome. So that is your initial schedules. Now, you might also find that I want this form to be a daily form. However, I only need my site managers to actually complete the pre-start. And this is when user groups start to pop up. Now, I'll show you how to create the initial user groups a bit further down the track, but this is how we associate them to the forms. So user groups are a way to create a group that is assigned to a group of users, which then is assigned to some forms. And so what that means is that only the forms that I need to complete are showing up for me. So this means I can assign specific forms that only my managers need to complete, or maybe all of my maintenance forms would only show up for my maintenance team. So for this example, I could say I just want my site foreman to complete the pre-start. So that means if you log in, if you're not a site foreman, that form won't show up for you. But for all the site foremen, it'll show up on a daily schedule. Now, this feature is only available in our professional pack and higher. And it is something that can be customized. So you could create many user groups. And if these ones are just mine that I've created, but you could create any that fit your company internally as well. Awesome. So we've talked about user groups, and we've also spoken about our scheduling for daily, weekly, monthly, and ad hoc. Perfect. So that is your schedule. From a form builder perspective, I can see at any time what forms are set up on a specific schedule. I can also see this gray tick down here. That indicates all the forms that are going to show up in my form library as well. Cool. From there, just a few extra buttons that are great to be aware of. When I edit the form, if you find you need to customize any of the questions, you can scroll down here, and anything under form design, you'll see these numbers start to appear. And those are all of the questions that show up on the form. So for example, I can see this question here. This is what it looks like on the app. And I could go through and edit the contents of these questions at any time. You could also change the answer types. So you see these all have yes, no, but I could change that to a multi-choice. I could change it to that they have to add a reason if they answer no. I could change it to just a text box. I could even make them take a photo. So maybe in their toolbox, you want them to take a photo of their whole team together to, boost morale, but also so you can see everyone who actually attended that toolbox meeting as well. You could introduce signature captures, but we also have a few features that link to other areas in our system. So maybe you've got training resources that you've added and you want to link them into a form, or your staff need to select what piece of equipment they're talking about in their equipment form, or they need to choose what staff attended that session. So you want to choose a staff from list. So make sure you click into these answer types, have a play around with them on the app so you know how to get the most out of our form builder too. We do also have a mastering form building webinar, so feel free to attend that if you would like to, as that's going to give you a much deeper dive on how to really customize those forms to suit your business practices. Awesome. Couple of small things. The bin icon in SiteApp means to delete, so you can click that. If you've got a very repetitive form, you can just duplicate the question and then edit the text to customize it each time. And then last but not least, do make sure you mark as many questions as relevant as required. And so that's when this red triangle shows up, and it means they have to complete that question before being able to properly save that form. Now, if you find you've customized a form and you want to see what it looks like on the mobile app, you can get a little preview through our preview button. And so up the top here, once you've saved the form or saved it as a draft, you can click the view icon and the form will pop up just like this to show you how your staff would see it when they're completing it on the app. Awesome. Last but not least in our form builder is the orange plus button. So you've found that we've built a lot of your forms for you, or you have tackled them yourselves, but a new system's popped up that you want to dive into. Just click the plus button and you can start your own form from scratch. If you are building your own forms, I highly recommend watching that Mastering Form Building webinar, as that'll walk you through it from start to finish. Perfect. So that is our forms. Now, you might have a look at your account and think, a lot of these forms aren't actually relevant for what my business does. So what you might want to do is turn them off. So if they're one of our default forms, so as we recapped before, the ones with the orange icon on the left, you might find that you can't actually delete it. You can, however, turn them off so that your team can't see them at all, and it cleans up your account so it looks really nice and clear. To turn off a form, all you need to do is click the pencil icon first, head over to form settings, and we want to remove all schedules completely. So the first schedule we looked at is we want to remove it from the ad hoc forms. And then we want to take the schedule off completely and mark it as none. So now I know it's not going to show up on my to-do list because this is scheduled as none. And it's also not going to show up in my form library. So there's nowhere for it to show up. Once I do that, I can save it. And you'll see that form has now disappeared. If in the future you change your mind, all you need to do is come back here and go show unused forms. And you'll see all these forms here with the red triangle have been turned off. To reverse it, just do the opposite. So hit the pencil button, come into form settings, go down to the schedule, and choose that schedule that you now have as a relevant schedule for your team. So some of our newer users, they decide to turn off quite a few of the forms. So then there's only a few key forms that your staff can see when they're first learning how to use the system. Then as they get comfortable, you slowly introduce a few more. And so before they know it, they're completing their fully fledged health and safety system on SiteApp Pro. Great. That is all of your forms. Moving on to a different page now. We've currently learned how to use your dashboard, how to add new forms, how to edit the forms, and how to schedule the forms. We've also learned how to turn the forms off, as well as how to navigate through our to-do list and our ad hoc forms. So we're covering quite a lot here so far. Now, something we're missing is now our sites or our locations. So when we complete these forms, where are they saved to? How do I know where the staff completed them? And that is where our sites page pops up. Now, this title here is customizable, and I'll show you how to do that towards the end of today's session, as we find everyone calls it something different. So whether it's your sites, your projects, your jobs, you can customize that title so it's familiar for your team. Now, this page is where we set up all of our locations of where you are completing those jobs. Each time you set up a site, your team will then be able to select it from the mobile app. And then when they log the forms, they'll be saved against that location. So to do that, all we need to do is the orange plus button. It's always the orange plus button to add. So I click that one. If you're new and you've got a backlog of sites that you do want to add, you can do a bulk upload by downloading our template. Just be really cautious of our date and time, our date formats and any specific required fields so it imports correctly. If you just want to add them one by one, hit the location icon and then fill in as a minimum all of the required fields. So, for example, this could be my Whenuapai Drive job. Some customers, they'll add their job number in there. So it could be 234 Whenuapai Drive. You could add the customer name in there. So that could be Sophie's Builders, for example, if that's who I'm contracting to today, or if that's the company that I'm working for potentially. however your team best identifies the jobs. Some people will add in here, maintenance, or it could be, new build, or it could be whatever additional information your team needs to see, as that's what they see on the mobile app when they're choosing that location. Categories, this is more for you when you're looking at the admin console. So again, you can make this a maintenance job. This could be a new job. This could be a returning job. However you want to categorize it, you can also leave this blank if it's not something that's important to you. Active, that just means it's going to show up in this list so they can access it to select their relevant jobs. And address is the most important one. So I might go in here and choose write in the address. So now what this means is when I'm on the mobile app, you can see here the distance I am to the site. So what that will do is it'll bring the job that I'm closest to at the top of the list as it drops a pin on this location. If you do work on brand new residential developments, you may find the address doesn't actually exist yet. So all you need to do is go onto Google, drop a pin, and you can then grab from Google the longitude and latitude. So then you can still get that distance measurements for your team as well. What this also means is when I check into site from the homepage, is that when we see the reports, you will know how close your team are to that site when they checked in. So if they're actually still in bed and they're saying they're at work, it gives you that extra layer of protection and understanding of what your team is doing on site. Awesome. One key parameter there is when your team sets up the app, they do need to make sure their location services are turned on. Most of the time they say yes to that setting, but some people do turn it off. So just be aware of that. Great. The rest of the information is up to you as how much or how little you want to add. If you work with a lot of jobs and you just want to keep it simple, just add the name and the address. Maybe you work on larger projects for a longer period of time. You might want to really fill this in with all of the appropriate details. So feel free to have a look here, add as much or as little information. Your team would be able to access this information on their menu by going to their Sites or Projects tab and accessing that relevant project. They'll be able to see a pin of where that job is, so maybe they need directions, and then all of that information you have entered in will show up on the mobile app too. If you find your team always forget to check out at the end of the day, feel free to choose a site checkout reminder. So I could say that I need everyone to be alerted at 4:30 p.m. If they haven't checked out by then, this will prompt them to check out so that your reporting gets stronger and better. Awesome. So I've saved that job as a real base level. Now, if I want to add more to it, I can click the edit button and you'll see we've unlocked a lot of these fields. Now, some of them might not show for you, again, depending on what pack or subscription you've signed up for. But there's a few key areas in here that you can navigate to. The hazard board, if we're showing you on the mobile app, when I choose the location, the hazard board shows up in here. And now I'll just actually go to this one so you see exactly what it looks like. I can search for it at the top and click the pencil icon to access it. So the hazard board is a way of adding any of those environmental hazards that your team needs to know about. It's like having a hazard board on the front of your site, but it's just digitalizing it. So I can see here that I actually have 28 hazards that I've never seen before that's on this site. I'll check in first as a user, and then I can view these hazards. Now you can see they're all set up here on the computer login. So you can create a new one by clicking Add New. So maybe you're setting up the job and you know that there's always these hazards that they're going to come across. So you want to make sure that they know that first time they visit the site. You might actually have already set up a previous job and they have the same hazards and you want to import them from previous sites. You can also do that so you can save yourself time. Now I can see there's a red dot next to these hazards, but they're all live hazards at this point. You can see the name of the hazard, the control measures, the PPE required, as well as the residual risk impact as well. What I would need to do if I'm a user, I can also review any photos that are attached. But what I would need to do is scroll right down to the bottom. Now I'll just do it quickly so I don't waste too much of your time. And then I click read and understood. So I've now said that I have acknowledged all of those hazards for that site. If I've acknowledged them all, but I know that there is one missing, a user can click and add a new hazard, which will then pop up on everyone else's hazard board. If they did add a hazard that you want to remove as an admin user, you can come on here and you can actually just turn a hazard off so that it's no longer available for everyone on that site. So this is a really important way to make sure your team is aware of what hazards they're going to come across and how to mitigate them with those controls. Awesome. Additional areas we have is pinned forms and registers. This is your final way of scheduling forms. What I can do in here is create a form that's going to create a live register on site. Now, what does this mean? You can see here on my to-do list, I've got some forms that are pinned at the bottom. If you find there's a form, say a JSA or a TA or a JHA, that you continuously add to throughout a job, that's when a pinned form is really relevant. By pinning a form, it means it's going to be shared to everyone, so it's no longer a per user form. And what that means is that you will then be able to fill it in based on what you can see on the job today, click save, and then when I come back tomorrow, that contents will still be in the form, but I can add more to it if I need to. So then by the time you come to the end of the job, you can then get one big long JHA or JSA or TA, however you call it, to print out as one big report. Other forms that are great as a pinned form is an emergency plan. So that one I just complete once, but it's pinned to the site and it's public for everyone to be able to view at any time if there is an emergency. Now, if you have questions on pinned forms, we do have a great support article on pinned forms. So feel free to jump into our help desk here as well to see our pinned forms, or reach out to our support team at any time and they'd be more than happy to help with different use cases on how to get that set up. All right, the next section is our resources. So this one is super important and there's a couple of different ways that resources will pop up in Site App Pro. So again, if I was going to look at my resources for a site as a user, I'd go down to my sites and projects area and I would go to the site that I'm currently on and scroll down to resources. So if there is a specific site permit or maybe specific SWMs or SOPs that are only relevant to this job, you can upload them as a resource. There are two options. We have a resource as a file, or we have a certificate and permit. So a certificate and permit, you can set an expiry for, so that could be like your site permit that you need to know when it expires. A resource could just be a document, so instructions, where they need to go if there's an emergency, anything like that. If you find your file is too large, or you just have maybe a link to a video, you can also upload a URL instead. You'll add the file, and then you can add the information, and then it's stored against that job for anyone on site to be able to see and engage with. Just be wary, your resources aren't available offline. So if you do find you are currently working offline in out of range or out of coverage areas a lot, just be aware of that as well. Awesome. Those are your resources. Now, if you also find that you have resources that are relevant to your whole business, so maybe all of your SWMs are actually the same for your whole business and they're not site specific, instead of them adding them against every job, we can set them up as a company-wide resource. So I'll go into that in just a second. Last but not least on our sites, you can also set up some suppliers. This is just for our international customers at the moment. Our New Zealand customers do not have access to this feature. But we do also have a visitor register. So you can print a poster, print that, pop it on the front of your site, and any visitors can scan it to check in and scan it to check out so you know what visitors are on your site at all times. Awesome. That was a lot of information. That is your sites. So this is a really important part. You'll find you engage with your sites page quite a lot, as when you get assigned new jobs, this is where you'll go to set them up. So you might need to teach someone in your team who is responsible for setting up sites in Site App Pro to make sure they're familiar with how to do this. The final thing that is really important here is, so that you don't get a really long list that your team is finding too much, is that once the job is finished, hit the bin icon, and that's just going to archive the job. So what that means is it's no longer going to show up on the list, but if you do need to access the reports in the future, or maybe you find you're revisiting that site, just click Include Archived, and you can bring that site back to life. Perfect. That is our sites, our projects, our jobs. Moving on. Resources, just to touch on it really quickly, this is what I was referring to earlier. So if you find you've got either a lot of training documentation, you've got SWMS you need to upload, JHA templates, SOPs that you need your team to review, your health and safety manual, this is where you want to upload all of that. Now you can see here that if I've added them to a site, they will filter through to this page, but I can see what site they're attached to. Otherwise, you can just add them straight from here, again, clicking the orange plus button, and you can edit them here or remove them from here if you added them directly to this page. If I was a user on site and I go, okay, I need to review my SOP for what job I'm doing today, I'll go to the menu button in the top left corner. I'll go down to my resources, and I can see all of those resources in here. The best thing to show your team is the search bar. It's going to be their best friend. I could search for SWMS, and then all of those SWMS will appear. Now, based on their job, maybe only a couple of SWMS are actually relevant to them. So they could love heart some of those SWMS so that the next time they come here, they're favorited at the top of their list. Now, this resource page also relates to our form builder like we spoke about in the past. So maybe you find in one of your forms, you need your team to select the relevant JHA for what they're doing on site that day. So you would use a resource answer type that pulls a list of their resources, and they can choose the relevant JSA or JHA. You might find you've created a training form and you need them to watch a video before signing it off to show that they've completed that training. You could upload the video as a resource, link it into the form, and your team can then complete the training from the mobile app. Final example is you might find in their induction that they need to prove that they've read their health and safety manual. You could, in your induction form, use our answer type called selected resource, which is down here. Choose the relevant health and safety manual. Let's just pretend it's this one. And then in the form that you'll see that they have engaged with that resource, they've read it, and then whatever questions you've added below, they can sign it off. So you've got a clear report on who has reviewed these manuals or training and who hasn't. If you need more examples on how to better utilize your resources, please let us know. But resources are your best friend in Site App Pro. They're the way to really centralize all of your health and safety. Awesome. Last couple of things in here. If you need to customize your hazard and control list for that hazard board or the hazard answer type, you can do that in here. Certificates and permits. This is where, once we've gone through our team and users, all of your staff's training and qualifications will pull through in here, as well as any equipment or site certificates that you've uploaded. So you can export this as like a training register or a specific register to export in a CSV document. Okay, we are nearly finished. Now, just really loosely, equipment isn't relevant to everyone, but for some of you, it is really important. Follow that same process. Orange plus button to set up your equipment, add whatever equipment is relevant to you and your team, pencil button to edit any of the equipment, and bin icon to delete. If you find when you're adding a piece of equipment, go through as a minimum all of the required questions. The settings section here isn't relevant to the most of you. If you are confused about this section, please feel free to reach out to our support team. But most of you can skip through this section here. And last but not least, again, resources, equipment manuals, or you can add certificates for certain service dates you need to monitor. So it's a service, it's your registration date, click certificates and permits, service for truck, turn on the expiry date, and then you will get notified when that specific piece of equipment is ready to be serviced or checked. Awesome. That is your equipment. From your staff's point of view, again, equipment is found in the menu. They'll be able to see what equipment is due for maintenance, when their last maintenance check was completed, any resources that are attached, and if they've got the right access levels, they'll be able to edit and add new equipment as well. If anyone does work with contractors or external suppliers, you can add them in here. This is where you add the company and the company's details. Same process, plus button, add the record, add the details and any relevant resources associated with it. For those of you who work closely with contractors, your CSM will work quite closely with you on how to set that up in the best way and make sure your contractors are engaged with their health and safety. All right, we've made it to the end. So you've set up your forms, you've added your resources, and you've added your sites. You potentially added your equipment and your contractors, and now we're happy with our account. You've maybe even logged into the mobile app and completed the forms yourself so you know how your team will best use them. Now we need to give our team access, right? From here, what we want to do is the orange plus button, and we're going to hit the user icon here. So this is to give anyone access and their own login details. If you find people don't have their own mobile device, but you just need to add their training records, you can just add them as a staff member without access. However, this one here will give them access, and that's what pulls through to your user account. Really simple. Add their email address and set them a password. It will send them a reset password link that they've got 2 hours to set their own password. So you can either let them know the password you set for them, or they can also go to the login page and click Forgot Password if they didn't get to that reset link within the 2 hours. Next step, choose the user role. Field worker is the lowest level. That's what most of your team will use. A site manager might be a tablet manager, as they only have access to the mobile app, but they can see everyone's forms, so they're across everything on the mobile app. Yourself, if you've joined this webinar, you will most likely be an admin, which is giving you access to everything, both the admin console and the mobile app. Add their first name and their last name, and then any additional information you would like to add. If you are using the user groups feature for those forms, make sure they're in their relevant user group based on their role. And last but not least, do make sure you set up user notifications. Now, do be aware these user notifications are admin-based notifications. For example, completed troubleshooting forms. I wouldn't recommend setting this up for your staff. I would set that up for anyone who needs to know about all of the completed troubleshooting forms. If I'm only working on bungalow renovations, I would still be notified across any forms that have been completed across our whole business. Same with certificate expiry or maintenance. That'll let you know about all certificates and all maintenance. So the goal is to set up your admin users with these notifications, and then they can distribute the message wider based on the relevance. So that's setting up your user. Once you've set them up, as I briefly mentioned earlier, you can then set up their training records. And of course, that is through our resources. Again, plus button. Any documents you can store here, but certificates and permits is what you can do to store any external training. So a site-safe passport, a first aid certificate, a forklift license, or any training that you need them to be a part of, upload it as an individual certificate, and then you'll be able to access it in the certificates and permits register to export your training register. You can also see their completed forms, their corrective actions, their quizzes, all through their training history register as well. Beautiful. So that is adding your users. Set them up, make sure they have access, help them log into the system, and give them a quick run through on the mobile app. We also have our Train the Team webinar that is on very regularly that you can register from our Video Education Center. We also have a recording of that. This is for your team. It shows them how to log in, how to complete their forms, so it takes that load off you. So please use this service so that your team can also get the most out of SiteApp Pro. Last but not least is my business. You'll see I've uploaded our company's logo. You can upload that here by clicking select, and that will export on all of your reports. So it's got that nice professional flair. Edit any of the company information there. Set up your user groups in here. And then have a look through here to customize any specific settings, such as the name of your sites page, what you want to call your suppliers, turning on the check-in feature, or maybe receiving a summary report. Now, there is so much you can do in the system where you can really learn everything there is to know. But I would focus on what we've gone through today. There's so much to learn. What you can learn after you've mastered these skills is go watch some of our deep dive webinars, learn how to utilize our corrective actions, how to engage team through messages, how to navigate and export your reports for your audits or your internal reporting. If you're some of our premium customers, how to set up and manage your workflows through our form builder. And then, as I said before, how to navigate through the mobile app. So teaching your team how to check in and out, completing those forms each day, adding photos to their forms, adding blue notes, and more. So there is a heap we can do in SiteApp Pro, and it's up to you to really utilize all of those features. Improved in the future, or any areas that you think that would really benefit you and your business or your team. Awesome. I really appreciate you all joining this webinar today. I hope it was helpful. I'm very aware there's so much information to learn, but my best advice is to tackle one piece at a time. Focus on your forms for a little while. Once you're happy with that, start to add your sites, teach someone else in your team so you can share the load. And then from there, before you know it, you'll have a fully fledged, paperless, and really powerful health and safety system. So thank you today again for joining the webinar. I hope you got a lot of value out of it, and don't hesitate to join next time and bring your team along as well. Thanks, team. We will see you soon. Bye.